Hey guys, this is John here in Los Angeles with the Alpha Channel update for Monday, October 14th, 2024. We're going to start with Hakur Haldersson's Yggdrasil deck today, as we do. And today's card is Eikenskuld, Guarding the Treasure. Eikenskuld, Guarding the Treasure. And what is the treasure? Today we're doing Conan 245 by Roy Thomas, and Gary Hartle is doing the art. And there's a few things I want to talk about that sort of go in relation to the last few of these that I've done and this series of comics that we've looked at already. Comics from the new era, comics from the old era, comics from the median era. And what is it that's driving the culture change happening in Western civilization right now? I would go so far as to say that in the 90s, when Image happened, this really plays into what's happened this past week with Batman, Absolute Batman and Scott Snyder. Zach, your boy Zach, Richard C. Meyer, just posted a video today, I think, or yesterday, about why Absolute Batman is a hit. I think it's a novelty hit. I think it's a one-issue novelty hit, and issue 2 sales will fall off by half. Issue 3 sales will fall off by half of issue 2, so a quarter. If they're going to exponentially drop. And we've seen this happen with novelty comics ever since Image, ever since Youngblood #1, ever since X-Men #1. And the key is exactly what Scott Snyder said. These are creator-driven comics. For the longest time, the industry has been against creator-driven comics. They do not want star artists. They do not want star writers. A star artist can leave and go form his own company. A star writer can start writing for Hollywood. They do not want that. They hate that. And they have worked to make the characters the stars. And you even saw this roll over into things like USA, the TV channel, where they said characters welcome. It was a big thing. Reality TV is take the money and the profit away from the writers and just film idiots being idiots. Jersey Shore, who needs scripts? You know, the first Iron Man didn't have a script. The first Iron Man had 30 years of writing in the can to draw from and to build characters on and to improv from. So the idea that you can throw away writers and artists is ridiculous, and we're seeing it come full circle now. And that's part of why I want to talk about this character as opposed to all the other characters, why this character is so unique in the world of comics. And yesterday I said it's about violence, and it is, in part. But it's also about the theme of the Conan stories. The Conan stories are about trust, specifically a superpowered individual. Conan represents a naturally gifted, superpowered individual. He represents natural, innate power. Like Superman. Not so much like Batman, but specifically like Superman. Not like Clark Kent. Clark Kent keeps his power under a basket, hidden. He hides his power. Conan is not that. Conan is not hidden power. Conan is obvious power. When he walks into the room, the power dynamic of the room shifts. And the only way you can take advantage of or exploit this sort of power, if you don't have money, is to deceive it. Just in the world of, look, a lion can be trapped. A lion cannot be bullied. A fox can be bullied. A fox cannot be trapped. So this Conan represents a very significant power structure in the world of narrative fiction. And that's why he can't be plushy, right? Because he doesn't serve a purpose other than himself. He's power only serving power, and power in that it's only serving innate value and virtue, mostly virtue. Conan doesn't have and this is really interesting too, he doesn't apply value to other people's value. He only applies value to self-accomplishment. He never goes for the kingdom handed to him by marrying a queen. He wants to win his own kingdom. That's self-accomplishment. That you can't bargain with that. You can't negotiate with that. You can't reason with it. All you can do to take advantage of it is deceive it. And since he operates largely on trust and largely based on who he can add to his pack to make his pack more powerful, in this issue 245 we have two regular characters, two regular additions to the Conan group, Red Sonja and Zula. And Zula was we saw his first addition to the group just the last few Conans that we did. It would have been in 70s or 80s, early 80s, late 70s, where interestingly enough, he does the same magic trick in that episode that he does in this one. Conan has a few tropes. They are the thrown sword, being trapped and breaking out of prison, and obviously seducing girls, right? The thrown sword is amongst the chief of them. It's almost in every episode. Here, and we had the last issue of this, 244. I know it's one of the ones that we did way back. I got really mad in the early 200s when we saw a Jewish writer and a black writer both subvert Conan's character and the storylines to their own agendas. And in this one, we have Roy Thomas back working again. And Roy Thomas, I think, is at least an East Coast guy. He's a New York guy. He's very versed in English literature. And here we have Varney the Vampire. He's hideous version of Varney the Vampire. But Warren Ellis also featured Varney the Vampire in his Castlevania series. I feature Varney the Vampire in the series that I'm working on. He's a very famous historical vampire. And here he is bragging to Conan about his kingdom. Conan immediately sets about making fun of him, like we recently saw in one of the Elric books, where Elric was in a version of hell, and started attacking demons with his soul-drinking sword, and his sword found nothing of sustenance in hell. Conan immediately starts making fun of Varney, that you're a king of a shit heap, of a shithole, basically. This is a garbage world, basically like being the king of Haiti or Puerto Rico or sub-Saharan Africa. And Varney threatens him and also brags about his other plots that he's got going on. He is plaguing I have the hardest time saying this guy's name. I want to say Almaric, but that's not his name. It's Alamric or something like that. And he is he's from Numidia in the Conan books, but I always pictured him as a prototype of the Gallic king who stormed and sacked Rome, Alaric. He only has an extra M added to his name. And so he's sort of like, Alaric is like the ghost of Vercingetorix, who was murdered by Caesar. And the Teutoburg Forest, where Varus lost his 3 legions, was also revenge for Vercingetorix. And Caesar storming Rome was revenge for the lies that Rome told the German and Spanish generals and Gallic generals. And so here Conan and... sorry, I'm not showing the pages off. Conan and Red Sonja and Zula are talking shit back and forth with Varney the Vampire. It's a decent cover. The cover is a perfect example of what happens in the book. And here we get a couple more pages. They attack. Varney brings in these bat-winged creatures, one of whom Conan had rescued in the past, and they have a sort of an agreement with. And these creatures carry Conan and Zula and Red Sonja off. Here's a big picture of Varney. And when Conan reminds them of the oath that they owe him, they agree that they do owe him, and they drop him in this pit. And so the rest of the book is very much prototype formulaic Conan story. So they've been captured by a bad guy. They have some back and forth. It's very much pro wrestling, right? Everyone comes out to the ring and they have some back and forth with the microphones. They talk smack to each other. You did this to me. You did that to me. Well, I did this to your friends. I'm going to do this to your other friends. And now I'm going to do this to you. And that's basically all this is. Zula does his trope. He produces the fixings for a torch from under his loincloth, where in the first episode, Zula showed off hydrochloric acid that burned through he and Conan's chains, which we only did recently, so I remember this. And here they get into fights with, who are they fighting with? More monsters. Oh, no, they're not fighting with any monsters yet. Here, they arrange a grappling hook made of a dagger and rags and bones, and they use it. First, this is really kind of funny, actually. Red Sonja tells Conan and Zula she will try and climb out. Conan makes fun of her. She falls on her ass because the sides are too slick. And then this is a nice back and forth. They didn't have to do this. This is good writing. Red Sonja is brash and know-it-all. This is in keeping with her character. She is a sort of I can do anything girl. And Conan is the great rock climber. He doesn't even try. He's assembling this grappling hook. And then Red Sonja comes back with, you could have tried to stop me. And Conan's like, yeah, but you never listened to me anyhow. So this is great. This is a page. You have the 3 panels in the back, the last page, where they're in. So here we have Zula doing his bit, and he's got fire. So Zula is a useful addition to the group. Red Sonja tries to climb out and makes a fool of herself. So she's like Lucille Ball. And here you have Desi Arnaz in the form of Conan, who rigs up a grappling hook and uses brains, not brawn, to get them out of the pit. This is very much like Lois and Clark. When I was young, I was already analyzing superhero everything, just action. And the key thing about Lois and Clark was that Superman, Dean Cain, always had the power to force any situation. The problem was, where do you apply it? Because if you apply the force in the wrong place, you end up hurting more people than helping. You don't end up not helping anyone. And the bad guys were always clever enough in Lois and Clark to give him a couple traps, so he always had to be cautious and figure out who he's dealing with before he can just rush in. Same thing Conan exemplifies here. Conan is also the main character. This is a rule in fiction. Your main character has to be the character who solves the problem. Otherwise, they're not the main character. The person who solves the problem is the main character. We do have some Conan books where Red Sonja, some scenes, it's perfectly fine for Red Sonja to be the main character in a scene. Conan can share the spotlight. When you're Conan, you're not jealous of sharing the spotlight. One of the things Conan is smart about is adding people to his team who can contribute. And if one of the things you need to do is accept the contributions of the members of your team. Otherwise, why are they there? A leader who is a ball hog is equally no value to the team. Everyone else feels like a third wheel, and they end up feeling like a drain on his resources. And they end up saying things like, just go on without me. I'm no good. I can't help you. Everyone needs to believe they can contribute. Red Sonja contributes just by trying, just by having the balls to wield a sword, to climb the wall. That's who you need. Everyone has to try. Everyone has to try and contribute in any group. And here we have them escaping, and what's going on? They very quickly, they get out. And there is no daylight, so there is some light above, but it's not daylight, it's exploding volcanoes, which is important because Varney's a vampire, and so the bats are attacking the Nemedian army, and Conan says, I'm not going to stand here. This is a funny thing they have again. Red Sonja again is the one making the mistake. She says, well, let's just sit up here and watch and see what happens. Conan says, I can't watch humans be attacked by monsters. And he goes down to help the soldiers. And the soldiers are very grateful. And the bats throw Red Sonja down to Varney, who's going to murder her. And that's the cover, right? Varney is about to eat Red Sonja. And Conan throws himself down on top of Varney to stop him and rescue Red Sonja. Varney, of course, attacks Conan and is about to murder him. So we get a bunch of great pages. This is not the John Buscema stuff. It seemed like they packed a lot more plot into the pages than they do here. We have Red Sonja being herself. We got pages of it. This battle is really almost the entire comic. One of these bat-winged creatures sacrifices himself to save Conan, and we get a little speech there. It's very indulgent. This comic is very indulgent. So we get all the way here to this bottom page when this blue creature, the purple creature, rescues Conan by sacrificing himself. And Conan, in turn, listens to his death speech, treats him with respect, treats the rest of his people with respect. And does he even kill Varney? Does Varney escape? Yeah, Conan is, Varney apparently escapes. Conan is recruited to the Nemedian army and becomes a captain and rides away with Amlaric. Al-Amric. So Varney doesn't even get killed. They have a huge battle with him. And yeah. Oh, sorry. But so do you see how this, you can't turn this into a cartoon because you got to have Varney eating some people. He gets pretty close to it. You just have constant murders with swords. You need to show that. A lot of the stuff that you can cut out of a comic book, you inevitably would have to show in a cartoon. This would have to be the bloodiest cartoon ever made. And if HBO couldn't get it right with Spawn, they would have a better chance getting it right with Conan than with Spawn, in my humble opinion. They would have a much better chance getting an R-rated cartoon right with Conan than with Spawn. Whereas I, for my part, do not have to worry about the problems that plague Conan, being too bloody. As bloody as my comic is, I can easily transform this into G.I. Joe with red and blue lasers or stormtroopers who just have terrible aim. My book is about the courage of standing up to the bullies when you're not Conan. When you're Conan in the original issues. In the original issues, Conan was just a kid, like 170 pounds, 180 tops. So he didn't even look 6 feet tall. In this, he's 6'2", 240. So he's a natural, he's Rolf Muller. Whereas in the original Conan stories, Conan was a tiny kid he was David standing up to Goliath more often than not. And that's what I did. So this, you can plushie. This, she beats a pit fighter like a badass pit fighter in a pit fight, and it gets broadcast, and so kids all over the world are standing up to their bullies. Inspiration. And for everything Conan is very inspirational. He's very aspirational. Conan doesn't cheat. He doesn't use magic. He doesn't lie. He doesn't deceive people. He doesn't trap them. He faces them head to head, just like straight man to man. You have to respect that. That's the only thing you can respect. Everyone else lies to him because the big guys go up against him and they fight it out. You can respect that too. That's the only thing you can respect. Knowing is half the battle, and violence is the other half. Being capable is the other half. So, this leads me to what I want to talk about today. There is no one working in mainstream comics today, no writers with artistic integrity. They're all sellouts. When I didn't mention this yesterday, and I want to take some time to talk about it today. I wrote briefly for Marvel Comics, 2004, 2005-ish. I had a go-between editor who was introduced to me through mutual friends working out here as an editor in Hollywood. I was working as a video editor for television. And a friend said, I know someone who knows editors for Marvel Comics. If you want to write for them, here, submit to this address, and submit to this email address. I never met the person, never had a phone call with him. He sent the stuff to New York editors whose names I was not given and never met. All I ever heard was, this is awesome, this is great, we really like it, please send us more. And then when they let me finally write for Spider-Man, I got to write for a G-rated Spider-Man comic. I didn't know what that meant. That was the only thing I was told, was that it was supposed to be all ages. So, okay. I immediately had some kids see Spider-Man run out of web shooter fluid and fall in an alley and challenge him to a fight. They could see that he was hurt, and they wanted to challenge him to a fight to earn their rep, right? And it was funny. I was peak humor for me. Humor has always been my sort of not strong suit. It's where I struggle. I can make things funny, but more often than not, I make them cruelly funny. And that can be a little bit, Daniel Tosh and the other guy whose name I always space on. It's a really long name. Doesn't matter. But cruel comics can be a little bit... I never saw Spider-Man as a cruel comedian, but the other kids, I had them being really funny in the things that they were saying to Spidey. And to Peter Parker. I always saw him as Peter Parker. I never saw him as Spider-Man. Spider-Man isn't a man. It's Peter Parker in a mask is who he is. And because he didn't become someone else when he put on the mask. Batman kind of did. Bruce Wayne really didn't exist. That was the one thing they got right about the Christopher Nolan movies. Superman is a Jew, he's a crypto Jew. Crypto is in hidden, not rich. But Peter Parker, he always made sense to me. But so that story, the one bit of feedback I got from Marvel was, we don't have fights for no reason. We don't have fights just for the sake of having fights. And I immediately knew that I was dealing with women editors. It's the only reason someone won't tell you their name is they're afraid you're going to infer something from them being male or female. As a Marine Corps veteran, I absolutely do. There's a lot of guys writing heroic stories in comics who've never had a heroic experience in their life. They've never stood up to bullies. They've never challenged themselves. You can tell if a guy challenges himself by looking at his waistline. You can tell if a guy challenges himself by seeing the fights he picks and chooses in his life. They're written in his face. If a guy cheats, it's written in his face. Guys who use steroid and HGH and all that, guys who drink. Drinking is a cheat. Drugs are a cheat to get through the day. Drugs and alcohol are saying, I'm not strong enough to deal with the challenges life throws at me. I'm sorry, guys, but that's what it is. Not getting your workouts done is saying, I just want to crawl into bed. Life beat me so bad today, I can't make it to the gym. I just want to crawl back into bed. Sorry, guys, it is what it is. And so Conan represents a character who doesn't need to cheat. The only cheat he uses is a sharp blade. It's the only cheat he ever uses, and not even a magical one at that. Dr. Fox uses a magical, creates. Now see, when you create a tool, is that the same thing as using a tool that no one else has? Conan uses the tool of his day. He uses the tool everyone else uses. Billy the Kid used the tool of his day. The 6-shooter made everyone an equal, And if you got a bigger guy picking on you and you can shoot him or you can stab him, you know what? You better have the ability, you better have the guts to do it. Otherwise, he might beat you into stupidity and you might never be able to think for yourself again. It happens all the time. Old folks get knocked out and die. Do not let yourself be a victim, ever, ever. You have the ability right now to stop yourself from being a victim in the future. How? The more you bleed in peace, the less you bleed in war. Train, train, train. But when Batman says to Ra's al Ghul in that first movie, I've had training, and he says, training doesn't matter, will is everything. Training is will. Training is will anchored to good intellectual discipline and forethought. You can't tell me that will wins every time. Will is the berserker. The berserker burns out 75% of his resources in a single fight. A trained man utilizes 10% of his resources and is ready to continue when the first fight's over. The berserker doesn't last. The berserker burns through his men. You don't have that many men, white people. You have to train. And you can't just have kids. That's just kicking it down to your children. That's no better than the lawmakers taking out debts. You have to train. You can't say, I have 6 kids, they can train. Fuck you. What are you going to teach them? If you haven't trained, what are you teaching them? If all you're giving your children is money, what are you teaching them? The fight is upon you today, not 20 years from now. So that's why Conan can't be plushy. Because Conan's entire thing is self-reliance and trust. And that's very hard to plushy. That is the plushie of a sword or a gun is really what it is. Or just a fist. But Ashley Fox can be plushy. Ashley Fox is an angel. And angels are the first plushies. You know? And that's how I know this has legs. Conan has legs because he's an elemental character. He is an elemental character. Tarzan is also an elemental character, but Tarzan can be simplified in a way that Conan can't. Conan is fire. He's a Leo. You know what I mean? He is the lion. He's Amra. So, how do you simplify power? You know? It's very difficult to do. Whereas a girl can be a representative for power. She is a unique representative of power. Usually girls are not power. That's why She-Ra and Teela in the He-Man show was such a big hit. It's a unique thing. It's novel. It stands apart. Lara Croft, you know? So, I have a Conan character in my stuff, the Reverend. And the Reverend is like Solomon Kane. He can be plushy. He can represent more than himself. The Reverend is a uniform. The Reverend is like Batman. Conan, I guess, could be plushied with the helmet. The Viking is a plushie of Conan, you know? But because he's the name and not just a Viking or a ninja or a samurai or a knight, you know, an armored knight. Armored knight represents chivalry. Conan is a representation of chivalry, really. You know, a shield is it. Especially the shaped shield. This is why they're so afraid of the SS. That is this bit about artistic integrity. Where do I get off saying that no one working at Marvel or DC as a writer has any artistic integrity? Go back and watch Zach a couple days ago, or Perch, or whoever it was. Any of the writers talking about how hard it has been to break into comics over the last 20 years. And that's because the litmus test for breaking into comics is how anti-white are you willing to be? And especially for a white guy, you have no artistic integrity. C.B. Cebulski had to pretend to be Asian. You do not have any artistic integrity. The characters are inconsistent. The characters are inconsistent because the writers have no moral framework for right and wrong. There is no moral framework for right and wrong. I had this stack of comics out the other day and I showed Lucifer. Lucifer is a main character. Do you remember how much, do you remember, have you looked into how much of an uproar there was when John Milton, who was a famous writer of his day, started serializing Paradise Lost? It was basically a comic book. It was published as chapters. He was getting feedback every time he published a chapter with Lucifer as the main character, seeking forgiveness. There is no artistic integrity in the mainstream comics in any regards because it's all culture war and fear-based, especially when it comes to the writers. I quit immediately, and I want to talk about the stories that I wrote. So first they told me, no fights for no reason. The next sets of notes I got were, we want personal character development, personal struggles with, they never said power hierarchies or anything like that. There was none of that. But it was about personal character development and interpersonal conflicts. And basically what that means is they were looking for family dynamic struggles. All the characters were white. If you're inserting family dynamic struggles into white characters who are supposed to be heroes, you're intrinsically saying they're dysfunctional. So people were going out and creating dysfunction in the heroes' lives of where there hadn't been any. So whereas a hero might have had a perfectly happy Aunt May, yes, she lost Uncle Ben. Yes, Peter Parker had a split personality, but he did have Mary Jane. He did have his friends, whoever, Flash, Hank Osborn, whatever his name was, who became Hobgoblin, Harry Osborn. It doesn't matter. The point is they were inserting dysfunction into the characters' lives. And now we have the full other end of the spectrum, which is the heroification of the villains. It's a villainy is a choice. It is a decision. It is a being beaten and saying, yes, the world has got me down and I'm going to take my revenge by hurting innocent people. And what we have seen over the last 20 years is that those people being humanized and being portrayed as heroes. So this is why it's so easy for me to pick out anti-white agendas in 3 issues of Revival when you had the perfect setup for heroism, opportunities of heroism, which is essentially rescue porn. That's all heroism is courage under fire, having the ability to stand up to bullies and rescue someone who at that moment doesn't believe in themselves, and then inspiring those people to stand up for others and to train and become stronger. That's what Batman is, right? You take Dick Grayson and you inspire him to stand up for himself. You take all the other characters, Barbara Gordon, Cassandra Cain, whoever, spoiler, whatever her name is, all those people are people who at one point didn't believe in themselves and have been inspired through training to stand up to bullies and to fight to help others. That's the only story you need. That's why the first Ip Man movie was such a hit, because he goes to that factory and teaches the people who are being oppressed how to fight back for themselves. He was teaching old ladies how to do Tai Chi and how to fight back for themselves. I had a girlfriend at that point, so inspired by that, she went out and spent 6 months training in Kung Fu. The Wing Chun school we went to was 2 pop culture Wing Chun with pop culture Wing Chun prices. She ended up being, for a little while, infatuated with a traditional Kung Fu school. So, inspiring people and teaching people is, first off, it's a business. You can make money doing it, and you can teach them anything. It doesn't just have to be martial arts. It doesn't just have to be losing weight. It doesn't just have to be skateboarding or playing hockey or playing soccer or doing pottery or watercolors or singing or music. It can be anything It has to be something. People need to be inspired. People need to believe in themselves. That's what the world is missing today. That's what all of you are missing today. And it's because the Jews who run your culture are corrupt and they want you fighting with each other. They want blacks and whites and Palestinians fighting, Muslims fighting with each other, so you don't notice that they are behind all of it. They're behind slavery, they're behind porn, they're behind usury, which is predatory lending. They're behind every problem you have. And me saying that is a problem, but if you don't believe me, go out and find out for yourself. And what you should really do is ignore them, pretend they don't exist, and go find your fight. Go find your art. Go find what you want to do. I have stories I have to either get out as comics, as video games, as audiobooks, as something. That's what I need to do. And lately I've been coloring, and I enjoy it almost as much as I enjoy writing. And a little bit, I'm better at it than I am at illustrating. But if I could write, illustrate, and color and find a way to make money doing that, no one would ever hear from me or see from me again. I would become like Frank Cho and just have my own Liberty Meadows or Calvin and Hobbes and never be out here talking to you guys. Only because my writing is more epic and less simplistic than Calvin and Hobbes am I out here doing this. And today I also want to talk about the third chapter. This is going to be a long one today. The third chapter being Ashley Fox's first chapter, and it is her on the bus doing a journal entry for summer school, complaining about how the only kids who go to summer school are bullies and nerds, and the bullies they locate and persecute the kids that they will piggyback off of for the rest of the school year. And it's an intimate, unfair, predatory relationship. And as soon as they get off the bus at Rivendell Academy, she and her younger brother witness a nerd being bullied, and her younger brother begs her to go rescue his friend. And she does in spectacular fashion. She breaks a bully's nose and gets away with it. So if you want to find out how, that is in Legacy of a Mad Scientist, chapter number 3. And if you want to check out how Ashley Fox Ninja Babysitter becomes an angel, it is here in the description as a PDF. So now I am really finishing up for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.